Now I am going to show you what is model. Models are actually the class-based PHP files. In Laravel, you see that it follows the MVC architecture or MVC pattern. That means model view controller this architecture. The M means here model. Each database table has a corresponding model that interact with your table. So how to create model and how to work with it, I will show you everything. For example, I am going to create a table. You see that this is Laravel, root is username and password is in my case root. If I go here, you see that there is no database in the name Laravel. So I am going to create the migration. The basic migration files are given here, that is database migrations. Here are basic by default migrations. I am going to terminal and I am going to run php artisan migrate, enter. You see that it is asking to create table, yes, and the table is created. If I go here and refresh my php my admin, you see that a table comes, that is Laravel. A database is created, that is Laravel. And in this Laravel database, what are given here, you see that these 5 tables are created. Now I am going to create a custom migration. For example, I am going to create here php artisan make migration, then create, for example, customers table. I am going to create a table that is customers, so I can use the customers table. So you see that the migration file for the customers is created now. And here what I can do, I can call like this table, then I am going to give a field name, that is a string. For example, here I am going to give here customer name, that is name. I can also copy and paste here, that is email, customer email. I can give here customer phone, and also I can give here customer country, for example. So 4 items are given here for the customers. So if I run the migration, what will happen, then I am going to terminal and here php artisan migrate. So you see that a customers table is created. I am going here, refresh, you see that the customers table has been created. As I create a customers table, now what I can do, you just remember that when we will create any table, we will give the name of the table as the plural form, that is customer. If there is any English word that has actually no plural form, it is invalid, then we can just use the singular form. But if any word has the plural form, we must have to use the plural form for the table. It is not mandatory that you will have to use the plural form, but if you use plural form, you will get many advantages here. So just remember that the standard is make the table name in plural form. And I will create a model now. Model is actually a PHP file which will be created into the app. Here into the app, you see that here is a models. By default, when you install Laravel, then a default model is given here, that is user.php. If you open it, you see that namespace is app models and all the code for the user models are the code for the user model is given here. But if you create a custom model, the code will be simple, not so complex. Here actually here it is going to be interacted with the password, remember password, email verified, etc. So it is looking a bit complex, so I am not going to use that. Just remember that I created migration that is customers, and I created a table by the name customers. Now I will create the model. So how I can create that? In order to create a model, I am just going to terminal. You will have to use the artisan command, that is php artisan make. Here you will write model. So you see that when we created controller, we just use the make controller. When we created the migration, we use the make migration. Now I am going to create the model, so I am going to use the make model. Here you can have to give the model name. Just remember that the first letter will be uppercase, and the model name will be singular form of your table. For example, customers is my table name, so in this case your model name will be its singular form, that is customer, like this. Just press enter. You see that in the models folder a customer.php file comes. So here I just go to the file. You see that this is the default model. It is actually not mandatory to touch this file, because using the customer model we can do a lot of things here. I will show you step by step in next lecture how to insert data, how to show data, etc. I will show you. But just remember that in the customer.php, in this case I can use this. Now here is one thing to discuss you. That is, for example, like the customer table, I am going to create another table. So PHP artisan make migration. Then I am going to create, for example, another table. That's name I am going to create which table? Products table, for example. Create products table. Now the thing is, if I want to create the table not in the plural form, I want to create the table in the singular form. It can be happen. I want that the table name will be product, not products. So in this case, I am going to enter. You see that here a file comes. This is the migration file, and here for the product, I am going to use some to create some field, that is a string, that is product name, right? So product name, and another one I am going to give here, that is product price. Okay, so these two items, and here you see that by default this id just creates a field in the table that's name is id and make it primary key and auto increment. But I want that I want to change this name. So how I can do that? In order to change this name, for example, I want to give the id name as product underscore id. So here I will write product underscore id, but this field this function will be actually big increment. So if you write the big increments, this method big increments, then what you will do, it will just make an auto increment field by the name product id, and I will make it primary. So I call the primary function here. Now if I run this migration, what will be happen? So PHP artisan then migrate. So here it is showing error. Where is the error? Create products table PHP artisan running migrate, syntax error, multiple primary key defined. Actually here primary key not needed probably, because when you will create the big increments, it will automatically create the primary key. Probably this is, I am going to create PHP artisan migrate. It is not actually working. So here actually by default id is created, so it is telling me this error, product already exists, that means already has been created. Okay, I am going to check it. The product already created. Okay, so I am going to remove it. Okay, so here I am just going to remove the product manually, drop it, and from the migrations also I am going to check there is no migration happened, just product is created. Okay, now I just remove the primary. Now I am going to try it again, PHP artisan migrate. You see that now it is success. That means if I refresh, you see that the product comes. This is the product id and all fields are there. If I go to structure, you see that the product id automatically is primary key, big int and auto increment. That means you do not need to define any primary function here, because if you use the big increments, it will automatically make it auto increment and it will apply the primary key over it. So this is done. So you see that I break two rules here, because by default we know that the table name should be in plural form, but I give it singular form. So this is the one rule I broke. And another rule I broke, that is the primary key name I changed, that is product id. So what will happen if I want to create the model here? So what I normally will do, PHP artisan make model, and then I will give the singular form. So product, you see that here product.php file come, and this is my model. Here I will have to change one thing. If you use a model by the name product, but when you will use the eloquent system, eloquent ORM in Laravel, when you will interact and use the model for it, then this model file, it will search actually the table name by products, but actually there is no table name and there is no table in your database by the name products, because I use the singular form, that is product. So for this reason here I will have to define one thing here. That means I will have to call here a variable that is protected variable that is protected, and I will have to give here the table equal to, here I will have to tell that, I will have to tell the model that which table you will search, that is not products, you will search product table. So singular form, I give him I give it to search by the table name product. And another one I will have to tell here, that is protected another variable that is primary key. I will have to tell that in my case the primary key is product ID, it is not ID. So it will not search by default the ID, it will now search the primary key as product ID. So it is found because my primary key is now in this table product ID. So if you break any default rule here, then you will have to define in the model by this way, otherwise it will not work. So I create one model that is customer, and I applied the rules here, the standard rules, and in the product I did not apply the standard rules, but I just fixed that writing this code into the model. So in this way you can easily create model for your application.